Hey guys, so what we're going to be doing today is that we are going to be putting together everything that we've learned. All right, we've learned how to do a translation, we've learned how to do a reflection, we learned how to do a rotation, although quite tricky. We have learned how to sequence specific transformations. The first one that we did was that we learned how to sequence translations. That means if we do two or more translations. We've learned how to do a sequence of reflections and then translations, also vice versa. And we've also learned how to sequence rotations. That means rotating an image on two different centers. Today, our job is that we are going to be doing a variety of them to make sure that we can sequence all of these rigid motions. So please remember that rigid motion means that the size of the shape is not being changed. The length of the shape is not being changed at all. The only thing is that the position that it is in, the way that it looks, or how it is turned. All right. So today what we're going to be doing is that we will sequence all rigid motions, translations, reflections, and rotations. So let's do a quick check again on how to do rotations, because I do know that is the trickier one to do, especially if you're trying to do it in the interactive notes. All right, so when we rotate an object, what we want to do is that we want to make sure we know by what degree and where our center is going to be. In this case, they are telling us they want a 90-degree rotation around the origin. If it does not specify clockwise or counterclockwise, it is automatically counterclockwise. All right. So let's take a look at this shape here. What we have is that we have a triangle, and the way that we rotate shapes is that we need to draw elbows. All right, starting from where our center is, what we are making is a long arm and little elbow to meet that point. And what you are going to be doing is that you're literally rotating that arm at 90 degrees. So that means a fourth of a turn. So that elbow still needs to stay the same. So it is still going to be 2 and then 2 here. Your first point is going to be right here. Our next one is that we are going to go from center, make another elbow, 5 over, 2 up. So that means when we make our next elbow, that's going to be a quarter of a turn. It is still 5 up, 2 over. So that means it would turn out to be right there. For our last one, it is going to be, again, 5 over, and then it is going to be 6 up this time to meet this point. So that means if I turn this elbow a quarter of a turn, it is going to be 5 up, and then I'm going to do 6 over. That means it is going to be right here. All right, I didn't draw the entire thing because I knew it was going to take over another shape. So you then connect your dots, and this is what your shape is going to be. All right. Over on this side, again, we still do the elbows. So we are still doing a 90-degree rotation around the origin. Let's go over some of these. Starting from the center, we want to go 1 over, 1 over, 1 up. So that means if I want to do a quarter of a turn, it needs to be 1 over, just like this. So that means my first point would be right there. Oh, actually, no, that's right. Wait, no. 1 over, 1 up. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Next is that I need to go 1, 2 over. So that means 1, 2 down right here to make my next elbow. To go to my next one here, I'm going to go 4 over. And then like that. So that means I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 over. And that means 1, 2, 3, 4 here. And then last is that I'm going to go from center right here. Right here, so that means go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go 1, 2, 3 right here. All right, so I can already tell my mistake, which is the very first one that I did here. Okay, so let's go over this again. If I am going from center here, 1 over, 1 up, if I turn that 1/4 of a turn, it still needs to look like this. Okay, so what I did was completely different, and that's why it's incorrect. So my point should have been right there, not this one right here. All right, so you guys can already tell when it doesn't look right, and that was my mistake, my bad. All right, honestly, I really prefer doing these in person because it just makes things a lot easier. All right, so our job is that we want to make sure that we are following the correct sequences when we're doing these problems. Because what you guys have noticed is that when you're doing translations only, what happens is that it does not matter which order you guys do first because it's going to end up in the same place. But if you guys have noticed is that when we do translations and reflections, order does matter, okay? And when you're doing all three of them, guess what? Order does matter and comes to this case, all right? So the question is, does the order of the sequence of the rigid motions matter? Yes, okay? Every time that you are moving it, it is telling a specific story that's going in a certain path, all right? And once you veer off from that path, even though you're doing the same thing, it's gonna take you someplace different, all right? So let me show you guys what I mean by that, all right? So there's two examples right here. A is our original image, okay? So let's see what we have here. We have a vector right here. We have a line of reflection, and our rotation is going to be at the origin. So this is a specific pathway that's happening. So we're translating first, then rotating, then reflecting. So notice this, is that if I translate first, this is where I end up. From that point, what's going to happen is that if you rotate that, it's going to end up here. And then when you reflect, it's then going to end up here. So this was the placement of your final image. All right? But what happens if I still have the same original image, but then I did things in a completely different pathway? All right? So if I did A and I rotated first, I would actually end up right here. If I translated that next, that means I'd be moving over here. And then in the end, I would reflect, and this is where my reflection would be. So notice that it is not anywhere close to where I had it before. So it becomes super important that you guys are able to follow the sequence of those motions because order really does matter.